Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Abernathy, longtime journalist, former columnist for the Washington Post, and I'm here today joined by Ken Buck, former congressman and founder of Americans for Good Government. We're here on the Balls and Strikes podcast to talk about common sense government reforms and fiscal ideas that should matter to everyone. Ken, it's good to see you today.
Good to see you also, Gary. Thanks for being here.
So Fox News Digital just published a 5-part investigation. We've all seen the recent No Kings protest around the country, the different protests from the left that pop up, seemingly organic. I don't ever understand it myself. And where do these folks come from that are out here by the thousands protesting? But they found a tycoon named Neville Roy Singham, who's a self-described communist, now living in Shanghai. He has funneled roughly $278 million into a network of approximately 2,000 left-wing organizations. His wife, Jody Evans, co-founder of a group people have heard of called Code Pink. The network was identified as a key mobilizer behind the recent No Kings protest, roughly 500 people. Ken, if an American billionaire in China, living in China, is bankrolling 2,000 organizations that kind of parrot CCP talking points, at what point does activism cross the line into something kind of entirely different, even dangerous?
Well, Gary, it's a great point. He crossed the line a long time ago, as did George Soros and a whole lot of others. They use our tax system, the nonprofits, and gain other tax advantages in order to really deliver propaganda, pure and simple propaganda to the American people under the guise of some sort of academic report or other credible work. And it's not credible. It is incredible, and it lacks the kind of substance that Americans really should. And Americans don't have the time to go and research all these things, and that's part of the problem. You've got organizations, you've got apps like TikTok and others that are then spreading the nonsense that these folks are pushing. They talk about how China's healthcare system is so much better, and China's economic system, and China is such a fair country, and American people don't understand the really harsh conditions that so many in China live under. There's slave labor going on in China. There's child labor. There's all these terrible conditions, and yet these organizations are only putting out certain information that makes China, Russia, Iran, North Korea look like good countries. And if you don't have the historical background to understand where these countries are coming from and what they're doing, it hurts. It hurts Americans' ability to make intelligent choices.
It's amazing how China. I read a lot of energy issues coming out of China. Our media loves to point to China and say, "Oh, look, China's leading the way in the clean energy, the alternatives revolution." Well, they're also simultaneously doing more coal than anyone else, and they never just don't report often enough that in China, if you speak out against the media, people tend not to hear from you anymore. I mean, they're the leading country when it comes to disappearing people. It just, as a journalist, Ken, it just irritates me when these protests spring up around the country. These facts behind the protests, when you see people unloading flatbed trucks of signs that are obviously created in the same assembly line, these aren't some grassroots, mom and her kids up late at night making these identical signs to hand out. This is a multi-million-dollar organization behind this. Easy for the media. Thankfully, Fox News did it, but so much other media can trace this, and they just choose to ignore it. It's one reason that media credibility is in the dumpster, even lower than the credibility of Congress or just about any politician out.
Well, Gary, it's true. I can remember walking in D.C. to a lunch or to some event, and I passed a protest, and there were a group of people walking around with signs and a megaphone and yelling, and there were maybe 10, 15 people, and they all got paid. They were paid protesters. They were there because that was their job, was to move from different issue and also location during the week. And then the media would come and they would cover it and they would talk about there's a protest today and this is what they're protesting for. And this is the horrible conditions, working conditions of this
Right.
company or some other issue that they were protesting. And nobody knew that these were paid. These were professional protesters. These were professional sign carriers. And it's sad because of course they're getting paid cash. So you draw your own conclusion about the tax ramifications of that. But it is sad that we have these billionaires in other countries that are trying to influence American public opinion in the way that they're doing it.
Yeah, I saw one report where, the reporter actually said to someone, "Don't you have a job? How do you get paid?" And he said, "I'm being paid right now." I mean, which is
Right.
very blatant about it. It's just like, okay, they're professionals. A lot of them are just proud of being professional protesters. They get the call, they go to the city they're told to go to, and they make their living doing it. Let's just be honest about it.
I can remember seeing a story, Gary, several years ago. I think it was 2020, where there was a police shooting, and I think it was Wisconsin. And the police chief in Wisconsin, they were arresting people for arson, arresting them for assault. And when they got the identification for the people who were committing these crimes, a lot of them were from Portland. Well, how did some kid that doesn't have much money get from Portland and probably living in his mom's basement, get from Portland all the way to Wisconsin? So you've got travel expenses, you've got meal expenses, you've got staying in a hotel, you've got all these expenses associated, and it's because these are very organized groups, and they look like it's a grassroots uprising.
Yeah,
Same thing has been happening to protest President Trump's immigration policies. A lot of those
right.
are very well organized efforts,
Yeah,
and they are always attacking the right, and they're always in the with what the left wing media will do is to try to portray America is in a state of chaos.
mhm,
99% of this city is just functioning very well,
yeah,
but this group has shut down a highway in a particular area. And America thinks, oh my goodness, we're in chaos because center right politicians are running the country. And the reaction, unfortunately, is that we move to the left and we keep moving towards socialism, getting closer and closer to communism.
yeah. It's really true. And the media, again, the media is to blame for so much of the misconception, so much of the lack of people understanding what's really going on. It's a sad state of affairs.
Well, Gary, thanks for joining me today and for asking great questions and making great points. I really appreciate your time. But I also want to make sure that the people who are listening to this have the chance to go to Americans, the number four, good, gov, G-O-V, .org, and sign up for our emails and leave some comments about what you think of this podcast as well as other material on Americans for Good Government website. Sign up for emails, join us, become part of this movement. Let's save America. Thank you.